Hi everyone, Abby is with you. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. I'm talking about why easy heroes or cheesy heroes shouldn't be allowed to be viable. And I know I'm going to be rustling a lot of feathers, so please, for the people that main these heroes or enjoy them, this is not some sort of personal attack. This is mostly a deeper dive into competitive Overwatch, and in order to make it as healthy as it can be, we have to understand that there are some characters that just take away too much agency from other players when they're being played, or they are so easy to execute that a player does not go through the rightful learning curve when they play Overwatch. So with that being said, and us having an understanding of that mindset, I do want to try and keep it simple because I understand my audience is a lot more casual and not on the competitive side. I don't know. You guys let me know in the comments real quick. Are you a casual player, competitive player, semi, 50-50? You know, me at this point, I'm kind of both. I still love competitive. I've done it all, but there are some times where I'm just like, man, like, for example, this season, I can't take it. Like, this Tor Borissa Bastion thing is still incredibly strong. The Sombra rework was good for what it's worth, but it's still underwhelming in comparison. Perhaps if this poke meta was to leave, we could rightfully judge Sombra's power levels. And, honestly, like right now, I played a few games this morning and I ran into this reoccurring problem that made me realize that, okay, I feel like we need to talk about this. And we had this Orisa player. We had in one lobby it was an Orisa player, in another lobby it was a Bastion player, and we had these players, right? And the essential theme was that there was a point where the playing Bastion or Orisa was a bit overwhelming, so we politely asked them if they could swap. Now they got a little bit upset at first, but then they swapped it up because they realized, yeah, okay, this isn't working, because obviously going 3 to 15 gives you the hint that maybe your pick isn't working. And they tried to play the other heroes, and obviously it couldn't work. And they were just all over the place. For example, the Orisa player went Reinhardt and was just permanently shield botting. And bear in mind that this lobby is like mid masters plus, so people have an idea of how to play the game to a certain extent. Let's not kid ourselves, right? Diamond plus, you have a good idea on how to play the game, and you're just polishing up on your mistakes and things like that as you go up, and that's how you climb from that point on, right? It's a lot more in depth than that, but I don't want to dive into that in this video. So that aside, that player was completely lost, and he was just like, uh, all my tanks except Ursa are bad. And it really made me realize, like, okay, sure, fine, it's just this game, go next, right? I opened this guy's profile, and I kid you not, this guy was hard stuck in silver for all the seasons. And last season, he skyrocketed in win rate with Orisa, and now he's in the elo that we are in, which is like, the higher elos, and people understand how to play the game a lot better over here and everything. And he's kind of getting bullied really bad unless he plays Orisa. And if they have a good answer to Orisa, or he's unable to set the pace himself, which he was struggling with a lot, he just gets bombarded, and now he can't play anything else. And that forces us into a situation where we're like, damn, what are we supposed to do? You know, that problem is there for Bastion too. For example, that Bastion player, he went from Bastion and he like hard blocked Echo. Dude, this guy, he never used flight. He never used flight in Echo, and one of our supports kind of exploded, and she was just like, why aren't you not using flight to like flank or engage or this? And he was just like, if I fly, I'll get bursted down. And it's like, well, you're gonna get bursted down here or up there. You might as well try to make a play. You might as well try to test your limits and see what you can and cannot do. And unfortunately, this player just wasn't doing that. And I felt like that's a problem with characters like Orisa, Bash, and Torbjorn too, because they're so easy to play, because they bring such quick value, that a player is unable to limit test themselves and realize that what I'm doing right now is right, and what I'm doing then was wrong. They're unable to tell these situations apart, because, for example, when you're playing Orisa, all that's asked of you more often than not on that character is just stay alive, right? So if you just stay alive, at a certain point, if they don't mirror you, or if the enemy tank has an ego, it is very easy to climb on Orisa. I'm not going to like sugarcoat it. It's really not that hard to do that on Orisa right now. And this problem is kind of there in, it's not that prevalent, but it is there with Bastion and Torb as well. And I really feel like, some of these easier characters to play, or these cheesy abilities in the game, they try to skip through the learning curve that players are supposed to go through in order to become better at this game. The Orisa player can only really play Orisa to a certain extent, at her max capacity at a mid-masters level. But every other tank that they're playing is not good. However, let's turn the situation around. Let's look at a mid-masters Winston player, right? Because they've been playing Winston and understanding how to position, timing, cooldown management, and usage, etc., etc., he's probably going to have an easier time transitioning over to maybe playing Doomfist and Diva or even Wrecking Ball than the Ursa player transitioning over to play any of the other tanks, right? Because on Orisa, the only thing you really have to do is just rotate your cooldowns, and honestly, it's just very easy to do. I press shift, shift went on cooldown. Okay, now I press E. Okay, E went on cooldown. Now I just use Javelin, and my supports hard pocket me as the 2 seconds pass, and now my shift is back, and the cycle repeats itself, vice versa, right? And this problem is there in DPS as well with Bastion and Torb, where okay, enemy team is engaging or whatever, like Torb presses E, Bastion presses shift, bursts down the tank, the enemy team gets scared, they never push in, they wait it out, the tank comes back, rinse and repeat the cycle, right? It just becomes this extremely boring style of gameplay, and it forces both teams to go some variation or some form of these three heroes. And if you're not playing them, you're kind of soft throwing if the enemy team is running one of them, because the only way to deal with something else that does high burst damage or has high sustainability is to also run high burst damage and high sustainability. And that's why it feels like there's no answer for Orisa other than Zarya, or for Bastion and Torb. Like, okay, I will admit that Bastion and Torb are a lot more tolerable and a lot more like you can deal with them now, but the situation isn't any better. They're still, all three of them are still like top tier, you know, like they're S tier picks. They're top tier, right? They're no joke. And the way that they can change the course of a game is insane to me. If you don't want to mirror it, probably like maybe like every other character in DPS is just like they're all okay, but then Bastion and Torb are like insane right now. Then we come down to the support role, right? And support, like what I don't like about the direction of support, I've been avidly defending Lucio, Mercy, Zen, is because it brings a sense of responsibility, again, ability management, learning the characters to the best that they can, and understanding the value that you bring with your cooldowns, right? Obviously, if a Zenyatta is constantly orbiting his tank and never giving it to his flankers, to a certain extent, he is kind of soft throwing because he could be bringing so much more advantage to giving those orbs to his flankers and allowing the flanker to basically take a soft 2v1 duel or something like that, then just put 20 healing per second on a tank who's just behind corner anyway, you know. But you know, like the Zenyatta player would learn that over time that okay, I'm not supposed to be doing this because I don't really get value, you know. Or how Lucio players have to understand how to be really careful with the way they use speed and heal, and they have to be paying attention to all their teammates at all times. You know, this is also required from Mercy and Ana. And now that we kind of go over to characters that we see now with, you know, even in Overwatch 1 with when Moira and Brigitte came out, they kind of went through, they kind of broke the fundamentals of what was required of a support, you know. Samito already did a phenomenal video on this, so if you guys haven't seen it, I would highly recommend you go down to Samito's channel and watch the support video that he did. He did an excellent job covering all of this, that, you know, Moira, Brig, and Bap really did, like when you look back at the previous supports and them, they really did fundamentally break the game and the rules of the game on how support is supposed to be played and all that type of stuff. Now, Life Weaver, Keiko, Iliari are the newer characters that we got, and they follow the same principles that you saw in Bab, Brig, and Moria. They break a lot of codes that on what makes a balanced support. And if we look at Ana, Lucio, Mercy, Zen, they can only really be doing one thing at a time. And in this case, Lucio, who could do a little bit of everything at once, he doesn't excel at anything. You know, like his healing is mediocre, his damage is mediocre, his crowd control is mediocre, and his sound barrier is pretty good, right? So overall, he's like a character that requires a team to make him work. Now, Zen, you could be mechanically very good at Zen and hard carry your games, but then you reach a point where people understand how to play against the Zen, and now you need a little bit more coordination with your Discord orbs to get more value, right? Same thing with Mercy can be said with damage boost and her movement in order to zigzag around her team and not die immediately. But then you look at characters like Life Weaver, Kiriko, and Iliari. I've been saying this for a while now, and you know I've been saying like Kiriko is just an upgraded Mercy when you think about it, but more specifically designed to enable tanks and also disable the enemy tanks engages. Than she is designed to focus on DPS. Like she's the Mercy of the tank role, where you could just hard pocket tank with her, obviously like heal other people too, but like build up your Kitsune Rush right away, toss a Suzu, repeat that cycle because cooldown comes back super quick, and you can just win so easily. Like it doesn't, like the only thing that requires you to really be actively thinking about on Kiriko is her Suzu. And they designed these characters with like, okay, you can, for example, like, you know, Mercy actually has to actively see her teammates be in their line of sight in order to use them as an anchor to get around the map. Kiriko just breaks that rule and she's like, no, you know what? I just teleport through walls. And the range she has is, I believe, twice as Mercy's, right? Mercy's max range, I think, is 15 meters or 20 meters for Guardian Angel target. Yeah, Kiriko can do it 40 meters. And that's pretty nuts when you think about the evolution of this game. And even when we look at some of the things like Iliari in terms of cheesy abilities, the supports are a little bit more about cheesy abilities than cheesy game, like overall gameplay, right? Iliari, the fact that her shift can reposition her like pretty decently far and also boop away the target, like why did she need that? Along with the fact that she has a pylon that's as tanky as Tracer, has really high heals on the right click even now, although like the right click is not where her strength comes from, and she can do more damage than most DPS, right? Like I believe an Iliari headshot and Kiriko headshot does more damage than Dragon Blade. Why? You know? And regardless of that, it still requires some mechanical skill to execute those things properly. My point is, the problem in the support role is there's a lot of cheesy abilities that break the core fundamental design of a support player learning that if they made the right or wrong play, right? And in the damage and tank role, it's not an ability problem, it's more of the entire character as a whole being a problem of what they promote. Like, why would you learn how to play Sojourn, Soldier 76, Sombra, or any of the hit scans when Bastion is the final form upgrade that requires less effort, less learning, just less of everything from you, because he will do everything himself. Like, okay, just like enter a team fight, let your tank start the fight, and as soon as you see the tank taking pressure, enter the turret form and bombard the other tank, kill his confidence, and then roll that game and rinse and repeat that cycle. And the other tank just can't do anything about it. If he's playing anything that isn't Orisa, he's basically as good as dead every fight. You know, and the same thing applies to Torb. It's, oh, you're getting contested on Torb, but now turn into a mini tank. And you know, I still say that the spread reduction on his right click, man, you know what the sad thing is Torbjorn is a better Reaper right now than Reaper is, just because of how tanky Torb can get, the extra body that he brings. Like when you look at all this type of stuff on how it just like plays the game for you, you begin to realize how unhealthy it is to have these easy characters do everything, because then it promotes these players that aren't actually good at the game to reach levels of the game where they need to be good in order to survive. And then what happens is that they're spending a lot of time basically soft throwing your game. Like for sure, like you know, I'm gonna try to be optimistic. Next patch or the patch after that, they will unironically gutter Orisa, Bastion, or Torb, or we see a big power creep coming to the game, which I don't want. Again, I have to say this every video. And at that point, these Orisa, Bastion, Torb players, I'm going to ignore support for now. We're going to do a support video later. Orisa, Bastion, Torb players, they're completely lost in the sauce because they're just sitting there like, okay, I'm stuck in Diamond and Masters, and now the characters that I play, they're somewhat balanced now, and I can't cheese my way through anything. I don't know what to play here. And now they're playing over 100 games just to drop down in SR back to silver, uh, gold, or plat, low plat, wherever they belong, wherever they started, because they never actually learned the game. They never learned how to play tank. They never learned how to play damage properly, right? I feel like these problems are a little bit more prominent in tank and damage right now than it is on support. Support, we will do a separate video with them near in the future, because that I have to break down on a very wide scale. So support is a lot more about cheesy abilities. Damage and tank at the moment is more about three particular cheesy characters, but you know, this also comes with Mei, Symmetra. I know a lot of people disagree on the Sim thing, but Sim on King of the Hill, dude, when you know what you're doing with Sim on King of the Hill, she is unbelievably oppressive, right? Like, trust me, it's very situational, but when she comes alive, she takes over the game. Now, they don't need to actually nerf Sim. I think she's fine for what it's worth, but the idea on why we shouldn't push Sim to being hard meta or something like that, right? Like, where she is in her niche, she's fine. And we should allow these characters to live in their niche and be fine with it, right? Like, for example, like Junkrat Command Center is a good map for Junkrat, so you play him over there. Lee Junk Tower Command Center. So Junkrat being fine on that map, doing Junkrat things on that map, that's okay. And all of this is looking at it from a competitive perspective. Now, if you're a Junkrat specialist who can maybe try to make him work on other maps and things like that, you know, like the man, there are very few Junkrat specialists out there. You know, we got your Aquas out there. We got I mean, man, if anybody has played, you know, EU ranked, and then the legend himself, Avatar, I just you guys will know who that guy is. That hard locks junk, and sometimes he'll hard feed, and the other games the dude is on another level. But all that aside, the point basically is keeping these like characters that are too gimmicky, cheesy. We need to keep them in line and in a specific niche. So, for example, like May should only be playable with a brawl comp. Outside of that, she should really be struggling without those brawl components, because the gameplay that she tries to promote, if it's too viable, she strips so much agency from the tank, especially the tank, that it's like, what is the tank supposed to do? Right now, she has an instant 40 freeze, 40% like slows you down, and the high 100 damage. That's crazy to think about. Pair that with, like, let's say a Torb or Bastion bursting down a tank. This is why we're losing tank players, because tank players are the ones that suffer from these easier characters or cheesy characters that I press this button and now you're deleted in 2 seconds. This is why we can't allow them, and that's why the game should always stay in the format of um of high skill heroes be meta. I will always say this, and I'm more than happy that if people want to disagree, but if Genji and Tracer are the meta and they're doing well, the game has never been in a bad spot, and it's never been disliked from a whole perspective, and only a very small but very loud minority complains about them. And I understand that they can feel overwhelming to play against in lower elos, but my advice to lower elo players is take that as a challenge to improve. You cannot be spoon fed skill. You have to take your time to improve. Take the Genji or the Tracer as a personal raid boss, that if I can outplay this guy, I deserve to win. Like, you cannot win every game in low elo locking Mercy Moira. And if that's what you want to do, that's fine. That's the cards that you want to play with, right? If you want to expand your skill set and be rewarded for doing more, and let's say you go to maybe play Ana in this case, or Iliari, and Bap, Brigida, and try to maybe outplay the Genji from a mechanical perspective in the way that he plays, you deserve to be rewarded for that. Again, support problems we'll talk in a different video. This topic was more about tank and damage and what I saw today in my ranked games, and it really made me think, like, the longer we keep these easy heroes in a really good spot, the worse ranked is going to get in the long term. Again, TLDR is when these people climb on these easy to play characters, they don't actually learn the game, and when the time comes for them to swap it up and play other characters that are viable, and their mains that they climb are not viable, they're going to be in a lot of trouble, because they're going to be throwing a lot of games before they go back to where they belong. And that's why we need to tackle this problem right now, hopefully in the mid-season, and not a few seasons later when Alec Dawson and his balance team figures out how to balance the game. Now, with that being said, that's it for this video. If you guys want to support the channel for free, legit, no money needed, I would really appreciate if you hit subscribe and like. It helps with the algorithm. And if you do want to help out from a financial perspective, you can use the super chat. I'll do the subscriptions and everything soon, so we're gonna have like stuff coming up for the channel. But again, if you want to support it for free, I would really appreciate it, man. Guys trying his best out here. Now, with that being said, I will see you guys in the next video.